Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. I never thought I'd have to deal with a neighbor as crazy as Karen. When she first moved in next door, she seemed nice enough. A little high strung, maybe, but I figured she was just stressed from the move. Oh, how wrong I was. The problem started about a week after she moved in. I went out to my driveway to head to work, only to find my car missing. At first, I thought maybe I forgot where I parked it, but after searching the street up and down, it was definitely gone. I called the police to report it stolen. They took down all the information and said they'd be on the lookout. A few hours later, I got a call that my car had been found abandoned across town. The officer said there was no damage, so it must have just been joyriders. I was relieved to have my car back unharmed, but annoyed that I had to waste half a day dealing with this nonsense. A couple weeks went by without incident. Then one morning, my car went missing again. I went through the same routine, reporting it stolen and eventually getting it back later that day. This repeated a few more times over the next couple months. It was incredibly frustrating not knowing if my car would be there or not whenever I left the house. The police were never able to find out who was responsible. Whoever it was didn't force entry or cause any damage to the car, so they had nothing to go on. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed security cameras covering my driveway and the street. Maybe I could catch the thief in action. It took a few days, but sure enough, I checked the footage one morning and saw my neighbor Karen sneak over to my driveway in the middle of the night. Clear as day, she unlocked my car and drove off. I couldn't believe my polite, unassuming neighbor was the one victimizing me this whole time. I brought the footage to the police and they picked Karen up for questioning. She played dumb at first, insisting it must have been someone else on the tape, but eventually she broke down and confessed. Apparently, she didn't have a car and was stealing mine whenever she needed to run errands across town. The officers let her off with a warning, which infuriated me. This woman had stolen my car countless times. Over the next few weeks, I kept catching Karen on camera trying to take my car. Each time I would call the police, but she always talked her way out of getting arrested. The most the cops would do is lecture her not to do it again. She just couldn't seem to help herself, though. I finally had enough of this insanity after Karen managed to sneak off with my car again one night. This woman clearly had no respect for the law or consideration for how much this was affecting my life. I came up with a plan to make her pay. First, I plastered the neighborhood with flyers detailing what Karen had been up to and warning people to be on the lookout for her behavior. Next, I submitted posts on all the local community Facebook groups and next door about her with pictures of her from my security footage. The response was swift. People were outraged at what Karen was doing. Many had been victims of car break-ins themselves and were appalled she was getting away with it. Karen's reputation went down in flames as word spread rapidly. To top it all off, I sent an anonymous tip about her theft to the local news station. They ate up the juicy story and sent a van to do an investigative piece right in front of Karen's house. She hid from the cameras, but it was too late. Her face was all over the evening news segment titled, "Neighborhood Car Thief Caught on Tape." Karen couldn't show her face around town after that without getting dirty looks or people yelling at her. She would leave in the morning only to scurry back into her house a few minutes later after being recognized. The harassment from neighbors and shunning from the community finally succeeded where the police had failed. Karen knocked on my door a week later, tearfully apologizing and begging me to call off the mobs. She said she would move away and never bother me again if I just made the uproar stop. I told her I'd consider it if she came with me to the police station and turned herself in for the thefts. She hesitated but eventually agreed, tears streaming down her cheeks. At long last, Karen was arrested and charged thanks to my persistence. Justice was finally served. I watched satisfied as Karen was escorted out of the neighborhood in handcuffs, ready to face the music for her crimes. She lost her good reputation, her dignity, and her freedom. I'm just glad I was able to expose her lies and criminal behavior before any other innocent neighbors fell victim. The neighborhood is now a little safer, and Karen learned the hard way that constantly stealing my car comes with serious consequences. I don't miss hearing the squeal of my tires speeding away in the middle of the night one bit. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I've never been one to make rash decisions without thinking them through thoroughly. So when I found a lump in my breast 2 years ago, Opting for a double mastectomy wasn't something I took lightly. My grandmother and great aunt both fought breast cancer. I didn't want to take any chances, so I wanted the surgery that would give me the best odds. My friends thought I was being too drastic, but they didn't know the family history like I did. I spent weeks reading every medical study and consulting with my doctors. They agreed the surgery substantially lowered my risk. With support from my husband Dan, I scheduled the procedure. The recovery was long and painful. I knew there would be scarring, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality. Where my breasts had been was two uneven patches of twisted skin that I could barely stand to look at. I started avoiding mirrors because seeing myself upset me so much. I fell into a deep depression. Even Dan's touch or affection made me recoil in shame over my disfigured chest. Therapy helped me process the trauma of losing part of my femininity and beauty, but it wasn't enough to lift me from that dark place I'd sunk into. My therapist recommended I speak to a plastic surgeon who specialized in post-mastectomy reconstruction. He explained the options like tissue expanders and implants that could help restore more natural appearance and contour. I was skeptical, but willing to consider anything that might ease my constant self-loathing. After months of tissue expansion, I had my implants placed last fall. Looking in the mirror for the first time, I cried tears of joy. It wasn't a perfect recreation, but I looked and felt like myself again. My confidence slowly returned as I adjusted to my new normal. Dan was relieved to see me smiling once more. Everything was going smoothly until I returned to work in January. That's when Jill, my obnoxious coworker, took issue with my breasts. We'd never seen eye to eye, but her comments crossed a line. "What size are those things?" she smirked one day. "I bet you went straight for the double Ds." The mocking went on from snide remarks to calling me phony behind my back. She had no clue the journey I'd been through. I asked Jill nicely to keep her opinions to herself, that it was a sensitive subject, but she just laughed it off, saying I needed to grow tougher skin. Every jab chipped away at the healing I'd worked so hard for. Soon I dreaded even being near her. The final straw came after an interaction with a client. Jill snidely asserted my breasts must have distracted the man from doing business. I saw red and snapped, "At least mine aren't fake like the rest of you." She looked taken aback for once as I told her all about the mastectomy and reconstruction. For a second, hurt flickered in her eyes before the mask of indifference returned. Still, she couldn't deny she'd gone too far this time. I filed a complaint with HR, providing documentation of my medical history and surgery. Several coworkers backed me up about Jill's inappropriate behavior they'd witnessed. At the review, she tried defending her jokes, but it was clear she'd created a toxic work environment. To my relief, Jill was let go without severance. After all the cruel remarks mocking my attempts to reclaim my health and confidence, there was finally resolution and closure. My implants may not make me a perfect copy of Before Cancer, but they gave me a chance at happiness again. And thanks to Jill's mistakes, hopefully other women, the next one is a petty revenge story. Okay, so after we had kids, my ex-husband decided that all chores at home besides the garden were mine, as I'm a woman, and so doing housework and minding the kids should come naturally to me and be effortless. He also told me that I didn't have a real job. I was working as a doctor becoming a specialist. He figured that was the same as being a student, WTF. He also told me that I didn't really make any money. Apparently, the 40% of our income that I contributed was nothing. He told me having kids had made me fat and ugly. At the same time, he wouldn't look after the kids. So I could go and exercise, and was himself happy to sit on the sofa eating chocolate and crisps. He didn't exactly look like when we met either, and would switch between being offended if I didn't join him in eating and telling me to not eat crap. He would tell me how lucky I was to have a man like him and how nobody else would ever want me, and how I wouldn't be able to manage without him. I divorced him. We had to go to court as he refused to sell the house or buy my part of it from me. He refused to pay child support. My divorce lawyer, who only handles divorces, said that even though she was used to a lot, he was really something. His lawyer ended up quitting as he refused to accept that the law was as it is and that no, he could keep all our mutual assets and not pay child support. It took a while, and during that time I was pretty stretched financially, so I couldn't afford a car. So I had to bike everywhere with my kids in a cargo bike, and so I dropped all of the baby weight. I started going out on dates. I found out that even before I had dropped the baby weight, plenty of men were happy to date me, and they were actually handsome and successful men too. A friend of mine asked to borrow my Tinder profile. She had never been single while Tinder existed. She dared me to go on a date with a handsome 15 years younger man. I did. He was really nice, actually. We dated for nearly 2 years. Did I mention he had a six-pack and just wanted to make me happy? I found out that he was actually my neighbor's son, and when we started dating, his dad was still my ex-husband's neighbor. The lawsuit was still going on. He also had the same education as my ex-husband and worked in the same profession. They didn't know each other. Once the divorce was finalized and the house was sold, I bought a flat and a sports car. Did I mention that he ended up having to split everything 50-50 in the divorce and paying the regular amount of child support? I had proposed a 40-60 split, and for him to pay 2/3 of what is customary in child support in order to avoid a lawsuit, and told him that was less than what the law stated, but he wouldn't listen, so we had to follow the law. Oh, and since the divorce, he's gained all the weight that I lost. I look just as I did before I had kids more than 10 years ago. He looks at least 20 years older. He did meet someone new. She's very sweet and the kids love her. They actually prefer her to him. But to someone as shallow as him, I am pretty sure that he doesn't feel that he has upgraded. He treats her even worse than he treated me, the kids tell me. I feel sorry for her. Last time I had her on her own, I told her that if they ever split up, then I am fine with her continuing to be in my kids' lives as she doesn't have any kids of her own. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I used to work for a small company which was acquired by a group of investors, did not do a good job of hiding that they are planning to replace everyone with low-skill contractors and sell the company. For all of 2023, they've been pushing us non-stop to update our procedure documentation. Our senior manager announced in FY23 that there will be a monthly quota for procedure documentation. When there was pushback, his response was that it doesn't always have to be complicated procedures or a perfect procedure. He was always spouting something about not letting perfection get in the way of progress, etc. I was already thinking about leaving to finish my degree, so I immediately began the application process. But in the meantime, for most of 2023, I met my quota by documenting the most unnecessary procedures, but I gave them corporate descriptions so it's not immediately obvious. Some of my favorites: how to turn on my computer, accessing information technology resources, how to log on to my computer, utilizing security practices for informational technology resources, how I delete and move files out of Google Drive, allocating digital assets for collaborative processes, how to block your Outlook calendar, automating availability information across teams, how to request new office supplies from Staples, physical asset procurement. Since our team will be let go early in any acquisition pretty early in the process, most of the lower-level managers left or were checked out as they job search. My manager had been so distracted that they never reviewed any of my procedures. I asked for feedback on a few real procedures to make it seem like I was doing what they asked, and basically they simply checked off that I've been meeting my quota. I left the job in December and have started school this spring, but I just heard from an ex-colleague who is still with the company they just discovered my procedures. He just texted me and said the senior manager is furious because other people were basically doing the same thing, and now most of our team is left and they barely have anything documented. The next one is an entitled people story. So, a bit of backstory: I work as a manager for a major cell phone carrier. The amount of times we see customers who don't pay their bill and get mad that their service is shut off is crazy. Like, yeah, we aren't going to continue to provide you service if you don't pay what you owe. But I also do understand that people run into financial issues, and I will do what I can to help them out. Just don't be an asshole, and we will see what can be done. So recently I had a Karen show up to my store in a huff. When I see customers looking angry or annoyed come in, I take them instead of giving them to one of my reps because I feel like ultimately I'll get asked to help anyways. So I see her walk in with her kid and I look towards here and smile. Me: hello, how are you guys doing today? Karen: not so good. Me: oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What seems to be wrong? Karen: well, you guys cut off my service and I'm mad because I talked to your customer service yesterday and they said that I should be fine with service until I can make my payment next week. Now, when it comes to situations like this, all I can do at the store is have her pay her bill to restart her service. When customer service, CS, makes promises like this, which happens a lot and customers can have the extension due to a promise to pay service, we can try to contact CS and have them turn their phones back on. Now, the issue with contacting CS for a customer who has a past due bill is that the call will just go straight to billing to make them pay. If we enter another customer's number, CS will just hang up and report the store. So knowing this, I tell the customer exactly this to give her the right expectation, but I assure her that I'll do what I can to get in touch with CS. She didn't like that, Karen. What do you mean you can't restart my service or contact CS? It's your guy's fault that my service is shut off. Me. It's not that I can't, it's that it will be difficult to get someone on the line due to your account status. I'm just setting the right expectations. Karen rolls her eyes. Just get my service running again? So I guide her to my store's phone and call the number we have to call CS. On the phone, I chose the options to speak with a CS rep, and the automated machine asks for the number I'm working with. I dial her number and we get sent to billing. We then hear, "You have reached the billing department to make a..." Then Karen interrupts. Karen, that's the message that I get when I call them me. Yes, like I said before, this will be the only department you'll be able to contact due to your account status. Karen, we'll use your direct CS number. Me, this is that number. If you want, we can call back and try another option, but I think it will lead us back here. Karen agrees, so I hang up and call again. I try this time to reach a different CS department beside the general department that we call, but again, as soon as the system recognized her number, we hear the billing message again. Karen, this is bullcrap. Me, ma'am, please no swearing in the store. Karen, I'll say what I want, you can't tell me what to do. Me, you're absolutely right, but I can have you leave with no resolution to your problem. Karen, well, then use someone else's number to get someone to answer. Me. Like I mentioned before, I won't be doing that. I won't get my store in trouble for doing that, Karen. You have to listen to me. Now use your own number to get someone. Me. I'm not using my number. I've done all that I can do for you. If you want to use someone else's number, then you can call CS from a different phone. Karen, then give me their number. Me. Gladly, I start walking to the back to write down the number for her. As soon as I open the door to the back room, I hear her say, "That guy is an idiot." I stop in my tracks and walk right back to her. Me. You can leave now. I understand you're mad about your service being shut off, but that doesn't give you the right to insult me or my team, so leave, Karen. Well, I'm sorry, she said condescendingly. Please get me CSS number and I will. Me? No, you can Google it, Karen. How am I supposed to do that? My service is shut off. Me? Not my problem. Now leave Karen after she notices that I'm not going to budge for her, picks up her stuff, grabs her kid, and marches towards the exit. She says, as she's almost to the door, "You're an asshole!" Which one of my reps reply, "Well, at least he pays his bill." Probably not the major meltdown most people expect from retail stories, but I felt like it was good to share. The next one is an entitled parents story. I just want to vent. I've been with my husband about 15 years, and we were very LC with his family for most of it because he couldn't stand them. I probably only met his mom 4 times, even though we lived in the same city. Well, 2 years ago, we get a call from Adult Protective Services. She was in the hospital after calling COP, and when they'd gone to get her, the apartment she shared with her daughter, who is also an entitled piece of crap, a whole other story, was in such bad condition that they didn't want to release her back there. I'm sure they were happy to find someone else to take her. So we almost didn't even question whether there were other options, and we agreed to take her. We moved her in. It's been a nightmare. She's very entitled and narcissistic. She doesn't have much income because she hardly ever worked. So it's pretty measly Social Security. She spends about half her monthly income on cigarettes. We so love smelling it all the time. She does smoke outside, luckily. When we first got her, and she was pretty frail and it was winter, we let her smoke in the garage, which was a huge mistake and turned into a giant tantrum when we finally put a stop to it. Lucky for her, she gets Medicare fully paid for by the state and gets some food stamps, but we don't charge her anything. She's a total slob, has probably taken 5, 6 showers in 2 years, and we really resent having her here now. She never cleans after herself, makes noise constantly, and frequently acts like a child and throws tantrums. For instance, she ran out of a chocolate muffin she likes, but still had cake and other snacks. She huffed and slammed the pantry and said, "I guess I'll just have to go without as usual." We make sure she gets all her meds, gets food even if her food stamps run out, and drive her to all medical appointments. Some are 90 miles away and take 4 hours. But yeah, she goes without. I wish we'd tried to find an alternative earlier, but we finally are trying. Today I took her to meet with a social worker about Section 8 housing. She made it off the waiting list, and we're waiting to see how much she might get, and whether we can find her a studio or something. The lady explained that she would have to pay 30–40% of her income toward the rent. MIL started idioting about it immediately, how they were going to take all her money. I'm just sitting here like, idiot, you live in my house for free. Why shouldn't you have to pay something toward your own basic needs, such as housing? What the duck? Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.